Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, thank you, ma'am. I used to be a county mayor myself, so it's the best job I ever had. So
Yes,
thank you for being
I
here,
agree.
ma'am. Mr. Graves, besides the juvenile crime, your office also handles all the criminal prosecutions for the District of Columbia. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I understood the question. Outside of juvenile crime, we handle adult crime, but juvenile crime was handled by the D.C. Office of
Yeah,
Attorney General.
that was my point.
Yes.
In 2015, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia declined to prosecute 35% of the cases. Is that correct?
That's consistent with my recollection, roughly.
And yes or no, you were sworn in as U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia in November of 2021. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I think you testified earlier that the percentage of criminal cases your office declined to prosecute in 2022 was 67%. Does that sound correct?
That's not correct. That's fiscal year 2022. So it both predates when I was sworn in and postdates.
Okay. The total crime, though, is up 27% from the same time last year. So I don't think it's a lack of criminals. Why does your office decline to prosecute so many of these cases?
So thank you for the question, and I welcome the opportunity to explain. And Congresswoman McClain actually had a great chart that answered a lot of your question. The one thing not reflected on the chart is throughout the period.
Congresswoman McClain tends to confuse me, so I just asked me and you.
And I wish I had her chart to help me explain, but the one thing not reflected on the chart is that every year we charge roughly 90% of the most serious violent felonies. What changed, and you can see the change start in fiscal year 2017 and kind of incrementally step down each year, was our handling of misdemeanors. And there are complicated reasons. This obviously, we're talking about going across 3 administrations and 5 U.S. attorneys. We are working on some of the issues that led to these declinations with misdemeanors, and the numbers are going up.
Okay. In an interview in the Washington Post, you said your office is continuing to prosecute most of the violent felonies, but we're declining less serious cases. And is that correct? Does that sound within your recollection?
Yes.
Okay. And in the same interview, you said the cases you declined mostly came after arrests in cases like gun possession, drug possession, and other misdemeanors. Does that sound right? So
that generally sounds correct for fiscal year 2022. I would like to clarify the quote in light of a prior exchange, though.
Okay. Are you aware that your predecessor, Channing Phillips, who wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post titled, "D.C. should not disregard misdemeanor crimes, but should keep focusing on rehabilitation programs"?
Yes, I am aware. That was in response to an op-ed that ran in the Washington Post encouraging the U.S. Attorney's Office to stop prosecuting misdemeanor offenses at all.
Right. The only people who generally read those op-eds are the ones that were written about. So are you aware that the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, which includes Detroit, only declined to prosecute 33% of the cases in 2022?
Yes, I've seen figures reported from other jurisdictions. It's important to note when you're comparing to other jurisdictions, it's often apples to oranges comparisons. Some jurisdictions, for instance, the police can automatically file charges. There are no prosecutorial reviews, and then there's subsequent dismissals by the prosecutors after charges are filed. Okay.
But do you know that Chicago only declined 14% of their cases?
Yes, and that's an automatic file jurisdiction.
Okay. And Philadelphia only 4%?
I've seen that figure reported, yes.
Okay. And Mr. Conti, is that correct? How I say that name? Is it Conti?
It's Conti, sir.
Chief?
Yes, sir.
Chief Conti, okay. My name gets massacred pretty regular, too, so.
No worries.
All right, thank you. Didn't you say that the average homicide suspect has been arrested 11 times prior to them committing a homicide?
I did.
And so you could see how Mr. Graves' apparent soft-on-crime policies could actually make residents and visitors feel less safe?
I don't think it's Mr. Graves' policies necessarily. I think it's a combination of things, sir.
Okay. Mr. Graves, my office gives 4 to 5 constituents tours a week for, groups. Hundreds of families from East Tennessee come to visit the Capitol every year. All the members before you come to D.C. every session every week. We all have staff living in D.C. I think your decision to decline 67% of the cases, regardless of the reasons, put put our offices at risk, but most importantly, it puts my constituents and the constituents and every member here up at risk. I think it's unacceptable, and frankly, I think in some cases it's disgraceful.